Ready to go. Well, welcome everyone this afternoon to our session. And my name is Cynthia Gallant. I lead the global ecosystem of our channels and alliance partners in the end user computing space for AWS. I've been with the company about 3 years, a fantastic ride, if anyone has watched our company progress over that 3 years. Joining me today will be Carla Blickensturfer, who leads our North America partners for end user computing. And the topic today is to look at really the opportunity that is arising as a result of customer needs that they're pausing before they undertake some of the milestone decisions they have when they're going to be upgrading or refreshing their end user computing environments. So the objective of the session today is to review those customer trends that are driving a very rapid increased need and interest in transforming their end user workspace, and the opportunity for our APN partners, which this community is probably likely a part of. Before I get started on the topics, maybe I'll just do a quick poll. How many of the audience are current APN partners? Okay, just about everyone. How many are consulting partners, APN consulting partners? Okay, good. And how many are APN technology partners? Good. Any from outside of the US? Oh, good, good, great. So for those who can't see this on the replay, we have a very good mix of APN consulting partners, APN technology partners, both from the US and from outside the US. So the topics that we'll cover are the trends the customer trends within their organization that are causing them to look differently and to pursue workspace transformation, and the opportunity that presents for our APN partners to assist customers as they undertake that journey. We'll go through a quick update on our portfolio of AWS Enterprise Desktop and Application Services. The intent there is just to give you an update on the services that we have, because there are much more detailed, in-depth sessions on each and every one of them that you can find if you just do a search within the session catalog based on the name of the service. The services we're going to really focus on today, though, are the services for desktop and applications on AWS, even though the portfolio is broader than that. Next, we're going to switch gears a little bit. And based on the trends that we've talked about and the update on the services that we have, we're going to be joined by our customers and partners who are undertaking workspace transformation, transformation, and sharing their experiences, why they started down that path, how did they go about it, what are the benefits that they've realized to date, and where are they heading in the future. Of course, this wouldn't be a proper partner session if we didn't share with you the tools and the programs that are available to help partners in this market to accelerate customer adoption. And we'll close with a wrap-up and a call to action for you to begin engaging with your customers. So let's start with the opportunity. There's two major drivers of the opportunity. The workforce itself, the workforce landscape is changing. And I'm going to go through some of the statistics of the way that it's changing. And second, of course, the technology continues to change. In terms of the workforce changing, one of the most interesting statistics that I've seen is that as of 2016, 38% of the global workforce is now non-employees. And that's increased 30% over the last 5 years. That's a significant trend and a significant number in terms of the total population today that is non-employee workforce. In addition, in the US, 43% of employees worked remotely during 2016. And in some of the more recent surveys done of millennials, they actually rank the ability to work remotely as one of their top criteria for their employment decisions. So very important as we all look at that next set of talent acquisition, which is critical in our organizations. In addition, global mergers and acquisitions now reached $3.6 trillion in 2016 and will continue at an active pace. while the workforce itself is changing, we're also, and probably not news to many of you here, we're also being faced with increased security breaches. By May of 2017, there were over 1,200 reported security breaches. That was 29% higher than the period just 1 year ago. And the figures of the impact on the business are staggering, as noted here on the slide. So for IT organizations, this is causing a challenge in terms of the balance. IT organizations need to secure the corporate assets while not slowing or infringing on the employee productivity or the business agility that they need to quickly onboard new talent. So that challenge is what's driving this need for workspace transformation and how they approach delivering desktops and applications to their end users. The technology landscape is changing. We all know that. That's part of why we're here. But there are increased compliance and security requirements, either specific to an industry or a geography. And for example, in the European Union, there's a compliance regulation that's coming with a very specific deadline known as a General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR regulation. And there's a specific deadline of May of 2018 for that compliance. So organizations need to be looking at what they're going to do to address that need, especially when it comes to their end user services, where they may be at risk. The other thing that's happening on the technology side is that there continues to be hardware and software upgrades that your customers and our collective customers face. Those can be upgrades on the Windows side for their end user services. By 2020, the end of life extended support for Windows 7 is going to be here. That's 2 years out. There are also major VDI software versions that are coming to end of life. And all of this is having our customers talk to us and pausing and saying, I want to take a new approach. And not just because of the technology advances that are there, but because I have a changing workforce. In addition, on the technology side, if you look at our services, such as Amazon Workspaces and AppStream, we now support scalable graphics instance types. And that now opens up a whole new set of use cases for graphics-intensive applications to be run in the cloud, such as CAD in the cloud. That is an increasing trend. You can run these applications now at a fraction of the cost at what you previously would use running them on very specialized workstation hardware. So some important technology trends that are driving the change here as well, customer change. At AWS, we always work backwards from the customer and what the customers are telling us. And they are saying they want to change the way work is done, given these dynamics. They want to take advantage of being able to flexibly onboard non-employees. And those could include contingent workers, such as consultants, such as contractors who are doing development, application development. It could include what's called a gig workforce term in the industry, or agile talent, where very specialized niche talent is needed for a particular project and may be onboarded and then offboarded as it's no longer needed. You can see that word agility really playing out in the need for this workforce transformation. And that agility is going to be the difference in the organizations really remaining and leading in their competitiveness in their fields. This is very touchy. Sorry about that. The only way to do this, then, is to really have a secure, elastic, managed service running in the cloud that offers the new cost and security models that customers are increasingly relying on in cloud models and pricing models. That's going to free up operation cycles within IT organizations to focus on innovation and to improve the user experience. And that, in addition, will reduce dependency on hardware and software upgrade cycles that are consuming many of the IT cycles. I'm sorry, this is advancing almost on a mind of its own. I think I'll hold it out like this. I'll talk about the opportunity in terms of new users or new virtual desktop or application users, but there's also a very large base of existing VDI users. And they want to take advantage of the same opportunities of running cloud-based managed services for their virtual desktop and app delivery. But until they can get there, often driven by the deadlines on their license renewals for the software or hardware refreshes, they need some hybrid options. This is where customers are coming to us and talking to us. I'm sure many of you here are seeing and hearing some of those same trends. How does that translate in terms of the size of the opportunity for AWS and our partners? And I think one of the statistics that really struck me was by Gartner, that by 2019, approximately a year from now, 50% of new virtual desktop users will be deployed on a desktop as a service platform. This is advancing all on its own. So very sizable if you focus in this area at all. Maybe I should just advance it from here. Is there a way to? Okay, so I need to go back. Okay, I need to go back then. Okay, that's fine, no worries. Thank you for bearing with me. So that growth in terms of the new virtual desktops, it's also impacting the market size for virtual desktop software, or desktop virtualization software, which includes both the applications and the desktops being delivered virtually. By 2021, it's expected that the growth there is going to go from approximately $6 billion in 2016 to $28 billion. And for those of us who have been involved in this space in the past, we know that really the market has plateaued for a number of years just until recently. So these new numbers are significant that the analysts are measuring this type of change that's going on in the market. So for our customers and for our partners, there's sort of two general use cases. Go after those users who are not virtualized today and to look at transforming the way that they work in your organization. Those are what I call the greenfield use cases. Those are uses where it was too expensive or too complex to deploy VDI to address the needs of that user base. And that's usually, for our partners, and for our customers, that's usually a quick way to get started with our services, such as Amazon Workspaces and AppStream, starting in those areas where they're running the physical still desktops, non-virtualized, get accustomed to the technology, get the customer feedback, get your end user feedback, and then the service typically will spread in terms of the user experience. In addition, though, there's an extremely large base of installed VDI users. Over 50 million is the estimate. And again, as they're hitting these deadlines for hardware and software refreshes, and even other types of compliance and security deadlines, they're evaluating cloud-based options now. And that's why we feel strongly that you should be engaging with your customer in these dialogues, because they are asking for assistance. So I'm going to take a minute and just provide an update on our end user computing portfolio, because it has changed and it will continue to change. In typical Amazon style, we're really expanding the offers that we have in this space, and you'll continue to see that even going into the remainder of this year and next year. So we have secure managed services running in the cloud in these three categories of productivity applications for end users, for desktop and application streaming, and for communications and contact center. Amazon Chime, which is our collaboration in unified communications, was a new service in 2017, as well as Amazon Connect, which is our self-service contact center software based off of the customer service contact center software that we use globally at Amazon ourselves. So you can see the portfolio is taking greater shape and expanding, and it will continue to do so. As I mentioned, the focus for the rest of the presentation and more so today, we're going to look at the desktop and application streaming use cases. In addition to our services from AWS, we work with our ISV software partners, and one of those partners is Citrix. And with Citrix, we have options for customers to run in a hybrid model on AWS, where they may be bursting to AWS for compute or backup or disaster recovery. Most of those customers are doing that while they're really waiting for the right kinds of triggers and to move to a full, pure desktop as a service model. In addition, Citrix Cloud, which is their newer offer, you can run the resource plane on AWS. So in spirit of customer choice and AWS principles, we also work with strategic partners. Well, what are customers approaching us for in terms of the areas that they need help from their partners? 3 major categories: in the plan, architect, and design stage, the migration stage, and in the managed service stage. In the plan, architect, and design, you can see things like device strategy, application inventory, user profiles, and selection of the right bundle and instance type, security and network design early on, and of course, planning for the ongoing user management. Then the phase will come. Some of that is often done in an upfront engagement, as you'll hear from some of our partners, and then the decision, and there's usually some sort of proof of concept or pilot undertaken, and then there'll be a more broad-scale migration project, where the whole user environment will come on board to AWS, often in waves. Network and security and backup implemented and optimized, Active Directory integration, and integration into operations and service management software running in these organizations. The third area of opportunity that we hear from customers more increasingly is they like an ongoing managed service to handle the things that are their responsibility, even though they're running a managed service in AWS Cloud. So things like launching, terminating, and rebuilding instances, help desk and IT support and problem resolution, patch management and application updates. So some partners are building partner-branded managed services around these areas. We have examples in our partner base of both consulting partners who offer this, as well as software companies that focus in a particular industry. Last year, I had a partner here called Vertifor, and they have application software for insurance agencies, and they package that with workspaces and deliver that entire work environment to their insurance agents in a managed service and ongoing offer. So there's opportunities for both if you're an application provider as well as a consulting partner. This is just a sample list of customers running their Windows desktops and apps in a virtual manner hosted on AWS. And we're purposely randomly selected in terms of to show you the breadth. They're all different sizes, all different industries, including commercial and public sector customers. We have a much broader list than this, but we wanted to at least share a representation of the users today. But we're going to switch gears for a minute because having been on that side of the presentation, it's always good to hear the real-life examples from our partners and from our customers. So we've really been privileged to be joined by 3 customers and by 3 partners. And what we'll be doing is bringing them up and having them run some question and answer with each of them. I'll start with the customers. So I'd like to ask the customer from Johnson & Johnson, from Patheon, and Bridgewater. That's great. So on the far left is Jeff from Johnson & Johnson. In the middle is John from Patheon. And on my respected left here is Ron from Bridgewater. So Jeff, we'll start with you. And maybe you can tell us about your journey on this workforce transformation and what services you're using within J&J today. What were the primary use cases that spurred you to do something different?
Sure. Our journey started probably in about 2011, 2012, where we started to face the need to reduce the number of devices users carried while providing the same degree of services that they had prior with their laptops. We tried some on-premise, options, and then we quickly realized that that didn't really fit our economic or our capacity and demand management models. So we shifted gears and we started looking at the cloud services that were available, which is when we partnered with Amazon and we brought workspaces to the environment, which we tested and launched in April of 2015.
Excellent. Great. And are you trying some new services as well more recently? I think I had heard of some other
Yeah,
things.
we are launching AppStream in December 8th, so in about a week or so.
Excellent. And further down, you'll tell us about some of those use cases where you're going to be applying each of those, so that's great.
Sure.
What were some of the business triggers or prompts that had you sort of get off your past cycle of either physical desktops or running, on VDI and try something very different to transform your workspace?
Well, I think it was primarily driven, a lot of it was consumerization that drove a desire for people to have the choice to work on any device that they wanted. Mobility had a big play in that as well. When the iPad came out, there was a strong demand to start to drive more mobile scenarios with the same degree of security and capabilities. So BYOD has been a big focus for us, and we leverage it heavily for our non-employees. I saw on your slide you had, kind of indicated we have a good-sized community of non-employees where we see very, positive economic value as well.
Good. And I think you had some numbers in terms of how many users you're able to spin up quickly and spin down on a regular basis. It's quite an impressive number using more of a managed service now versus deploying on-premise. And then how about some of the business benefits that you're realizing to date from some of these projects that you've deployed?
Well, you mentioned a big one. I mean, in our non-employee world, we see a lot of churn. So, every month there's, thousands of folks that come and go, right? So projects end, non-employees tend to phase out, and then new projects begin, and non-employees phase on. So we do see a benefit month on month of not having to do that physically, right? That is a significant upside to the agility that doing it in the cloud gives us.
Excellent. I know you had shared with me earlier that you're also able to take advantage of some agile talent in terms of graphics design users, as well as how your sales teams are looking at using some of this new technology.
Yeah, I mean, sales, the opportunity there is really trying to reduce the number of devices that they carry, and we're really trying to push, them to leverage whatever device that they choose and not have to provide, company-owned assets across the spectrum like we had prior. So we do have some other interesting use cases. We use, the virtual desktops for our mergers and acquisitions quite extensively. And we do have some interesting activities going on with graphics and higher performance compute where engineering or graphics design users are really benefiting.
That's excellent. Great. And the question everyone always wants to hear, what's gone as expected and sort of what's been a surprise to you as you've taken this journey?
Well, I mean, I think we expected the technology to be fairly seamless, which, I think we've experienced for the most part. The surprises came just in trying to drive BYOD. Lots of complexity there in terms of laws and tax and, just the considerations to try to drive BYOD. And plus, when we go into our non-employee world, we have contracts in place. Some of those contracts have language that is more favorable for us to drive BYOD and some don't. So those, we were learning as we went, and that was one of the areas where we found some surprises.
Excellent. Future directions? Any thoughts on future directions in this space for Johnson & Johnson?
Well, I think we'll continue to leverage every technology we can to disaggregate and drive, BYOD and device of choice and less company ownership where it makes sense not to have company-provided assets, and we'll just continue expanding that for the economic upside, but also for end-user experience improvement. So.
That's excellent. I know you talked a little bit about your sales teams now, the desire to have iPads and to be able to project to their customers real time, really the use of that product in the medical device area. So very innovative ways that you're changing the way that your end user workspaces are deployed. So that's great. Next here is John Craven from Patheon. And John, maybe you can sort of give us an overview of Patheon in case folks are not familiar with what you do.
Sure. So Patheon is a contract drug manufacturing organization, and so we'll work with pharma companies like Bayer, Merck, Pfizer, et cetera. We'll actually provide the manufacturing space and equipment to produce their drugs in multiple delivery methods. And so it's essentially, we're the outsource partner for them.
Yep, great. And what were some of the triggers in your business that had you look at differently at how you deliver end user services?
Yeah, so the initial trigger was a revamp of our whole IT strategy and you know, how do we integrate the cloud, as well as some cost savings. But what really ended up happening was we saw Jeff had mentioned where we acquire 1 to 2 companies a year. And this has just been a huge benefit for that, right? It's a huge reduction in time, depending on the scope of the acquisition, to stand up that platform and bring those users on and onboard them as Patheon employees and give them that Patheon experience.
Yep. Excellent. And how about benefits both to your end users but also to your IT organization? What kinds of things have you seen?
So I think the biggest thing for the end user is some of the feedback that we've gotten where they'll tell us, you know, this is 100 times better than VPN. Why would we ever go back to that, or why would we use it for anything? As well as the ability to switch from one device in a working session, pick up on another device, doesn't matter where it is, what it is, and be right where they left off on our business network. And then from the IT perspective, just the ability to scale up a number of machines quickly and provide functionality and access to our corporate assets internally in our services.
That's great. Does that relieve some of the operational burden and hopefully give you more time to innovate and provide a better end user experience? Is that are you finding that at all?
Definitely. It really does reduce that overhead and that labor intensity.
Yeah.
Right.
Good. And where have you engaged either to date, or are you thinking of engaging an AWS partner to assist you?
So we worked with Cognizant. They helped us really review our overall strategy for IT and how we wanted to work in the cloud. And they were very instrumental in bringing us sort of up to speed and getting our pilot program going for our organization, and helping us walk through all the process and best practices of getting it stood up. And then, so phenomenal job there. And then I think in the future, what we're kind of looking at is if we expand into different Amazon regions for some of our different sites, different corners of the world, is, you know, getting their expertise to help with that.
That's excellent. And I will share that John had told me he gets the award for innovative ideas during this process. He said we should create an Amazon Dash button to really create and open up new workspaces for these end users. So you better be careful, because someone will hear that and do that.
It's out there now.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, John. And next is Ron Bledsoe from Bridgewater Associates. And Ron, I'll ask you to start with the same question in case people aren't familiar with your company.
Excuse me. So Bridgewater Associates is a hedge fund based out of Westport, Connecticut.
Great.
I can explain what a hedge fund is, but that might be a little painful.
I think what I read about the company, it's the largest.
We are the world's largest hedge fund with north of $160 billion under management. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And what were some of the business triggers that had you look at doing something different at this juncture?
I mean, the biggest, the most important thing was just really improving user experience. Something I think all of us have been trying to do. And then, like what most companies, we want to improve kind of IT operational efficiency.
Mm-hmm. So those two things. No, that's great. And I'm assuming your users are pretty sophisticated. And,
they think so. Yes, they certainly are.
Great. And you've started with Amazon Workspaces. How has that helped you to transform your users' experience in their workspace?
I mean, the best thing I could say is, like, I have people lining up, knocking on my door to get workspaces,
That's
which is
amazing.
something I've never seen before.
And you had tried VDI in the past, and
We have some failed VDI implementations in our past, and besides the complexity on on-prem VDI, we just don't want to own that infrastructure. We don't want to live in that world. So desktop as a service is just far more appealing to us.
excellent. And where are you at in your rollout in terms of your goals?
So we're in relatively early stages still, but we anticipate somewhere going to around 3/4 of our company by the end of next year, which is not something we expected initially, but we realized that the product is much more capable than we thought it would be.
Excellent. And any thoughts on where you might engage AWS partners? Some of the things you're going to do in the future?
So, I mean, where we spend a lot of our time are like the workflow automation, which we would rather pay somebody else to do for us. And then the metrics and data analytics around performance and those sorts of things. We would love to just buy that from somebody.
Good, great. Well, thanks so much, Ron, and to the rest of the customers that have joined us. This, I hope, was very helpful for you to give you a concrete idea of the use cases, how customers are embracing the technology, and the types of benefits that they're realizing. So I will continue with a couple slides, and then we'll bring our partners up. So thank you very much. So I mentioned when I went through the topics at the beginning of the session that we want to be sure to cover how do we help our partners in this space. As you may take a look at developing solutions or practices to go after this new need and support for customers. And we continue to invest, AWS, in making that entire Windows desktop and application migration simpler and easier. We have a number of partnerships with ISV software providers that provide tools for migrations that automate some of that process, that augment our own AWS services. And for our partners, especially if you're used to or have a long-standing relationship with AWS, you know we put a very high priority on technical enablement and helping you build your AWS practices and your assets for that. In addition, the other thing that I find always of interest to partners as I travel the globe is that our professional services organization is really a significant portion of their charter is to enable our partners. So we have a couple programs there. We have one called Supercharge internally, where our pro services team can co-deliver a project with you, an initial project, which helps with knowledge transfer. They're also developing workshops and local enablement to help you jumpstart your solutions and your practices. And for those interested in potentially looking at subcontracting to our pro services, we have the option of master services agreement, which isn't that old of a concept in the company. And that way, if a customer would like AWS to be the main point of contact, but then we want to engage other partners, it's a way, if you had that in place up front, to quickly engage. This syndicated marketing content in our APN Partner Central, which replaced our APN portal. And in addition, we have a rich set of incentives programs for both POCs and production deployments. This is just a partial list of those that really relate to the incentive programs for POCs and deployments on migrations and even more specifically, desktop and app migrations. We have a program that's very broad called Migration Acceleration Program. That's for the very, very large, typically when a customer is undertaking a number of workloads that are moving. And we have another program called Partner Migration Program for the smaller projects, but still nonetheless rich in services enablement. Rethink for Windows. We initiated about 18 months ago an Accelerate program for Amazon Workspaces and AppStream, where we will provide credits and cash for your efforts with customers, for POCs and for production deployments. And we have a Citrix Migration Accelerator program for any Citrix customers looking to migrate as well. And this brings up a point around the tie-in to the broader migration opportunity within customers. If you're working with customers and looking at broader workload migration, it's a very simple add-on to ask them what are they doing with their end user compute. It's an area that they would like to bring along. One reason is technical. If you're going to move the major apps and the data to AWS, they want their end user services to be close to that. And as evidenced by our customer growth, there's a very sizable opportunity there. And then the second is that your expertise, you're going to be in there anyway. You're going to understand their broader strategy and migration plans, and that's usually a very common element where customers will engage partners. So we will switch gears again, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Carla Blickensturfer, and she's going to have our partners join on stage. I'll step away. You just have to use the, oh, you're not even going to advance, so you'll be good.
All right, good afternoon. Come on up. Well, today I have with me Raghu from Cognizant, and we have Chris from Nuvens, and we have Mark from API Systems. And so first of all, thank you to all of you for coming out today and learning more about what we're doing with virtualized desktops, desktop as a service. And Cynthia really hit on a lot of great points as to why this is so important in the market, what's going on, what we're seeing happen with customers and their requests. But so I have the privilege of talking to our partners and helping you understand some of the great things that they have done for customers. So I'm going to start with Raghu, and I'm going to ask you. Cynthia talked a lot about market trends. What are things that you are seeing, as Cognizant? What are things that you're seeing that's motivating you to really address these market trends and these changes with the workforce?
Yeah, thanks, Carla. So at Cognizant, we as partners, we help customers and their workforce to connect to the desktops and applications remotely in a secure manner. And as Cynthia mentioned earlier, what is driving our AWS Workspaces strategy is some of the market drivers that Cynthia mentioned earlier. So 38% of today's US workforce are classified as non-employed. And the number of users and the proliferation of devices is putting increased pressure on IT. Third is the total mergers and acquisition completed in 2016 was $3.8 trillion. And not to mention that the cybersecurity threats are at an all-time high. All these market drivers are shaping our IT transformation strategy. And at Cognizant, we have selected AWS Workspaces as key to our IT transformation strategy. So to answer your question, Carla, these 4 market drivers as mentioned are shaping our transformation strategy, Workspaces. Yeah.
Right, and that's, when I think about all of those factors and then how Cognizant has addressed them, as John said, it really does play well with some of the things that you've been able to help them do at Patheon.
Right.
While we're on this question, I know that, Chris, you had mentioned that some of the motivation for Nuvens had been around some compliance as well as some economic factors for the UK. Can you just speak to that briefly? I think we have enough time to.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were lucky enough to work with a large global recruitment company, and they were looking to go to the OpEx model around a VDI solution. And the driver behind that was it was from the CFO because we had Brexit, obviously, and the uncertainties which come with that. So any solution which he wanted to put in place, he wanted to pay for it as he needed it. And he wanted to scale like he needed to do now, but also if things go wrong, he wants to drop off. So they decided on Workspaces, and as part of the migration, we migrated a lot of the local data from users' laptops and desktops to a centralized secure storage in Amazon S3. And that allowed them, Cynthia's already mentioned GDPR, that allowed them to tick a number of boxes which they were unable to tick before, and then continue on their path to make them compliant by the end of May 2018.
Wow. And that impacted about 4,000.
Yeah, that was 4,000.
Yeah, which is a significant number. And, along this line, because this is one of the projects that you did with the transformation of CapEx really to OpEx, but I think, Raghu, you had mentioned when we had talked earlier that one of the projects that you had worked on, that there was a significant amount of savings in time for provisioning. Do you want to talk about that statistic? Because I thought that was really significant.
Yes, yes. So recently we were working with a manufacturing company in Central America. And we had taken over their service desk operations. And the help desk analysts were distributed in 5 countries. And we had to provision desktops for them with the IVR software installed on it. So initially, there was a proposal to do VDI, but we picked AWS workspaces. And then we provisioned workspaces for close to 150 plus help desk analysts located in 5 countries in a matter of days. This would have been unthinkable in a traditional VDA solution. We think that's a great success story. So.
All right.
And the cost savings is like 30% over a traditional VDA solution. And then it was done in a matter of days, 2 to 3 days.
Right, and I think you had said that there was about an 80% savings with efficiency and productivity, from time to provision.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of revenue that can be generated when you're saving 80% of a company's
absolutely
time to market.
Not to mention the agility and the speed with which you can do things. Yeah.
So, Mark, I'm not going to let you off the hook with this question. I want you to talk a little bit about how you've had a project that you've impacted positively, the large deployment, desktop as a service, using workspaces. Just some of the things that you saw from that project that was really significant for that company.
Sure, thank you, Carla. So at API, we've been working with desktop as a service for about 10 years now, but more on the on-premises VDI model. And we realized early on that this was a model that we couldn't keep up with. Simply put, the customer's consumption model never matched our procurement model. We were always behind. And then when we had workforce transformation initiatives come our way, such as contingent workforce labor, we could never meet the demand. Thus, we had to look to a cloud provider to help us, and that was Amazon Workspaces. So what we found was, as a practice, we had to pivot a bit and move away from that traditional on-premises VDI and go more towards a services-oriented model, where we're doing less of the hands-on work and more of the actual touching of the user with their access to applications and access to desktops. And for that, we found it was an epiphany. We woke up and said, wow, this is a really good model because we're no longer installing kit all the time. So what that allowed us to do is really get the users onboarded fast and quickly, and offboard as well, because that's one thing that's often missed in typical VDI scenarios. Really good at deploying it, horrible at reclaiming it. In a desktop as a service model, you get that all baked in with your integration points to your service management tools. So that was one key thing where we found the workflows, automation, and integration into ITSM products such as ServiceNow or BMC Remedy.
And along those lines, because with this project, I think what might have shaped a little bit of your strategy was some of the offerings that you have. Can you tell us about how this workplace transformation, workforce transformation, helped shape offerings? And I'm not letting any of you off the hook on this one. So, what are some of those things that shape those offerings? And then I'll come back to you guys and ask about some of the benefits. But let's talk a little bit about those offerings.
So we had to reevaluate our offerings as a service, and one key area was automation and workflow. Historically, we would hire virtualization engineers and people well-versed with desktop virtualization. However, we shifted and we started hiring actual software engineers to actually work on these workflows, to work with these cloud APIs. So we really shifted, going from more of a traditional stack-built company with specificity in those layers to more on the application side and development and DevOps.
So Chris, what about some of your offerings?
Yeah, so we started originally just an AWS specialist, trying to do a broad range of AWS services. But what happened was we deployed a number of workspaces deployments into a number of our customers, and they liked it so much that we thought that there was a big market in the UK for this. And so we've really focused on the workspaces market and the complementary technologies which go around that.
Right.
And yeah, we built a workspace practice now and are taking on projects every other week, it seems. Yeah, and great success.
And you've done some specialization with some industry verticals as a result of this too,
absolutely,
as well.
yeah. So we specialize in the finance market, first of all, because they tend to be fairly early adopters of technology, and they like to have the best, and in our opinion, Workspaces is the best VDI solution out there. And we also deal in the recruitment market, because that's where my CTO's background is, and the recruitment market also has a very high churn of staff.
Right.
I think Jeff mentioned earlier that one of the issues which the IT departments have is because they've got such a high churn of staff, is that it's the provisioning and reprovisioning of laptops was really time consuming. And our customers think that they save about 80% of the time doing this by using Workspace instead. So.
Thank you. And Raghu, I thought what was interesting when we talked about this question, Cognizant has done some great work, and some of your offerings have now reflected a TCO model. So do you want to talk a little bit about how your offerings have changed or have become improved, or more, or you've catered more to the customers as a result of Workspaces?
Right. So Cognizant's offerings for AWS obviously covers the entire breadth of AWS services. With respect to Workspaces, we have two core offerings. One is the professional services or the consulting, where we help customers design their desktop as a service strategy, right from selecting the user, designing the user personas, and also we have a lot of accelerators that would help them migrate their desktops from on-prem to Workspaces very quickly. So that's our core offering, but we also offer managed services, which is, after you had migrated to AWS Workspaces, we run the daily operations for our customers, like my colleagues here. It is heavily automated, so we take the DevOps approach of managing those environments on Workspaces. With respect to total cost of ownership, we also help customers come up with a comparison between their on-prem solution on AWS Workspaces and with respect to the cost savings that they can achieve of migrating to AWS Workspaces, and also the reduction in operational expenses through Cognizant's managed services. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to come back to Mark to talk about some of the benefits, because I think this applies really to all the partners. And one of the additional things, and Cynthia had mentioned this earlier, that I wanted to point out, is that with some of those offerings, partners like Mark and even Raghu have become MSA or have MSAs with AWS. So I'll let you kind of summarize the benefits that you've seen, and then that'll kind of wrap up our partner session.
Well, I mean, right from the start, you hit the ground running with a partner like Amazon, because we don't have the lead generation power that Amazon's going to have. So that's one major benefit right there. Then having the MSA cuts through a lot of red tape, especially when you're working with large enterprise organizations, such as a pharma or financial company. So that can save, probably 6 months of time, often to get paper with a specific customer, where we're able to hit the ground running under the Amazon MSA and start work immediately.
All right. So thank you for coming today, for your time, your commitment, sharing your experiences. We love having you as partners, and look forward to the future partnership and it growing, and more partners, to maybe join you in this adventure with Workspaces and Upstream. And so I just want to kind of summarize, because what we've heard today from our partners is that with the changing workforce, whether it's a remote office or it's other places around the globe, there really is a benefit to have your workers be as productive as possible, and to connect information securely so that there is efficiency and that it's very effective to work in this way. And then, with Amazon Web Services, we offer Amazon Workspaces and Upstream, as well as other solutions in our EUC portfolio to be able to transform your workplace. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
You can just go right there.
Thank you to the partners for sharing your experiences. I hope it spurred some ideas from people in the audience for how you can change your business to bring additional services and assistance to customers undertaking their projects for work space transformation. And a lot of the service we talked about today was workspaces, and that's because the service has been out longer. But we do have some examples, and Johnson & Johnson mentioned their undertaking starting down with AppStream, and I think when you see us here the next time, you'll hear a lot more of the use cases around AppStream as well. So just to wrap up, the key takeaways. Because of the forces, the workforce trends as well as the technology trends, customers are embracing and looking for new ways to get work done. And they need partners to help. There's two types of use cases going into what we call the greenfield, where someone's using more the traditional non-virtualized environment, quickly getting them up and running with these AWS services. And usually based on that, they can get a good idea of the user experience as well as the cost and efficiency benefits to them. There's a rich services opportunity for partners in the sense that customers are looking for support in many different areas, including ongoing managed services. And as part of our APN program, there's a wide range of resources and programs. Too many to go into detail here, but if you visit the APN Partner Central, as well, we'll be here after the session. We can speak with you about a number of them. So really the call to action to close is don't wait to open the dialogue with your customers, especially if you're talking with them about migration in general and migrating workloads. It's logical that the virtual desktops and apps should be co-located with the other major applications and data that they're migrating. So take that opportunity and just ask that simple question, and we believe you'll probably surface some opportunity, and then hopefully we'll engage with you to bring those to fruition. So I want to thank everyone for their time, especially our panelists of customers and partners, and wish you all a good rest of reInvent, and please do remember to complete your evaluation forms. Thank you.